Okay, well, welcome to our panel. I see we are joined by Sophia Huck and Padma Rao. So today's panel is titled Around the Valor of VC. I think we have convened at a time that is also Hispanic Heritage Month, Latino Cultural Month. And so we're bringing this conversation to you with a Latino lens from the lived experience of what we happen to do, which is invest. So we're going to get started, and I want our team to introduce themselves and specifically what has brought you to investment. Tell us a little bit about where you are in your role and one of the things you're excited to discuss today. So I'll start with Padma.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vanessa. Hi, everyone. My name is Padma Rao. I am the head of platform and portfolio at Startup Health, the world's largest digital health innovation portfolio, where I get the privilege and honor of managing a portfolio of 350 plus companies around 29 countries. I'm very excited to be here and honored. My path into the venture and tech ecosystem wasn't necessarily traditional. I started my career in global health and international development at the United Nations. And from there, I transitioned into early stage startups. And then my first venture role at Laconia Ventures, an early seed stage sector agnostic fund where I was their head of community. So I had the opportunity to really build the infrastructure for marketing and portfolio support. And then that brought me to Startup Health. I wanted to really bridge, both healthcare, my passion for that, but also venture capital. And so I'm in the role I'm in today. One of my kind of favorite things about my role right now at Startup Health is I get to work with Vanessa at the California Healthcare Foundation. We launched a cohort specifically for Black, Latinx, and female founders to make sure that we're really ensuring that they have access to the right resources, community, and network so that they can really scale the impact of their businesses. So yeah, excited to be here today and looking forward to continuing the dialogue.
Thank you. Thank you, Padma. Sophia, how about you?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Sophia Huck. Currently, I am an Included VC Fellow. So Included VC is a global fellowship for the future generation of investors. And I'm also the founder and CEO of Muslim Women Professionals, also known as MWP. So we're the fastest growing nonprofit organization in the world for Muslim women. So we provide Muslim women with networking, professional development, and resources to help them thrive in the workplace. My career, like Padma's, was also very non-traditional. I started out in e-commerce, retail, and luxury fashion years ago, worked in that space, but decided to leave because I really wanted to start this community because I saw that so many Muslim women were facing Islamophobia, sexism, and I really wanted to start something that could be a resource for them. And so started MWP back in 2018 while working at a nonprofit that focused on supporting Latino and Black students and getting them into college. And then shortly after that, ended up being a part of an accelerator here in Los Angeles as a founder before working at a startup, and then going on to XRC Ventures, where I started out as a program manager and then was promoted to senior program and community manager, supporting over 100 companies in our portfolio when it came to building out the curriculum for the accelerator, building out our mentor network, and helping all of our founders prepare for demo day. So I am Pakistani and Mexican, so I'm very passionate about supporting diverse communities. And so I'm excited to be here with you all today.
Wonderful. And I'm Vanessa Villaverde. I'm Senior Program Investor for the California Healthcare Foundation, specifically focused on early stage companies that are working to address issues in healthcare. Before this, I started out also in the startup community after a decade in policy, specifically because I had a mentor that told me, if you really want to make change, you have to go out into the startups. And I found that to be true. And I also found it to be the hardest work that I've ever done in my lifetime. So I think once you really understand the life of a founder, you frankly just want to help and make it easier. So with that, we're just going to get started and presenting kind of a state of the state. So I'm not sure how many of you know, but specifically because we are in this month, there is a light of light shining on our community, but there's still so much more to do. So did you know that 200 Latinos are opening up a new business every month? This is the highest rate of entrepreneurship of any population. Yet, because there are so few funding opportunities, of those raising capital, 72% currently are relying on friends and family to support their businesses. We're currently unaware of how many Latino businesses are missing out on a broad, scalable opportunity because funding isn't available. And also, we don't necessarily have the connective tissue across our organizations and across the country to identify them. Today, there are small but mighty venture capital groups like Vamos Ventures, led by Marcos Gonzalez, special purpose vehicles like Second Mountain, led by Dr. Mario Bolina, angel networks like Citrine Angel, led by Aurelia Flores, and of course, startup accelerators and others who are working to actively expand the number of doors that are opening for Latino founders. But frankly, it's not enough, and we need more. And so my first question goes to Sophia, who I know has thought a lot about intersectionality. What do you think can be done in a broader community perspective to raise the profile and to create more opportunities for Latino founders in the investment space?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think when we were preparing for this call, one of the things that we had talked about was intersectionality. And one of the things that I mentioned to both Padma and Vanessa was that, this problem that we're seeing in the Latino community isn't a problem that is only supposed to be solved by the Latino community. This is an issue that needs to really be at the center of all diverse and underrepresented communities. Me being at the intersectionality of being South Asian and Latino, I see firsthand how so many of the obstacles that both South Asian founders, specifically those who maybe are not Indian, right? Because when we think of even Latino, people assume just Mexican and are not taking into consideration other countries, right? Other people from different parts of LATAM, same with South Asia. And so there's so many similarities in terms of the struggles that those types of founders are going through. So I think really just being very intentional, like when it comes to investors in this space who are from diverse communities, really ensuring that we're, even from an accelerator and platform perspective, being very diligent around creating inclusive language when it comes to even applications like for different accelerators, ensuring that we're not just relying on our networks, but actually going out into these different VC communities that have really began. And as a result of these different problems, so like Latinx VC or Somos VC, I believe now that it's called, or VC Familia, investors have a responsibility to go out into these communities and to really ensure that they're putting their best foot forward to target these different founders. Because I think what we're seeing is, if the investor space is already lacking diversity, their networks are also going to lack diversity. So I think it's really important to see more people in this VC space going out into these different communities, going out to an MWP for Muslim founders, going to a Latinx, Somos VC, VC Familia for those Latino founders, and ensuring that they're building resources that are truly going to tailor to these founders. An accelerator should never be a one-size-fits-all model. It should really be about understanding what the needs are from these different founders who come from such different backgrounds to ensure that they are successful and ultimately going on to get more funding.
Awesome. And Padma, we talked a lot about what it is you're hearing on the front line about what founders are needing. There are a few different mentorship programs popping up all over the country. Would love your perspective on what you're hearing frontline.
Yeah, absolutely. So to build a little bit onto what Sophia was also saying, I think in today's world, there's so many accelerators, incubators, mentorship frameworks, and models. It can be overwhelming. I think one thing is also really kind of how do you get intel on that? Maybe it's aligning with each other, finding your allies. The one big question I get every day is like, oh, like there's all these different equity share models. How does that impact me? Especially if you're a first-time founder, especially if you don't have deep entrenched networks, that can be overwhelming. And you can sometimes get yourself into a sticky situation if you've kind of, handed off equity in different spaces. So I think it's doing the kind of groundwork and sharing knowledge as a community. I think as you're going through experiences, tapping into that, sharing that with others, breaking it down and making it easier for others. I think, I don't know about everyone else, but when I get on LinkedIn every day, I see so much information. There's a wealth of knowledge out there, which is amazing, but it's also like, sometimes I have to take a step back. I'm like, what does this all mean? What's really credible and valid? And I think that's where communication, a community, leaning into kind of who your allies are, whether it's investors, fellow founders. And I think finding more commonality there to share that knowledge is definitely the starting point. And that's always my recommendation, because community and kind of using and leaning on each other lends itself to partnerships, collaborative opportunities, and then of course a safety net. You have a security blanket of just understanding other people's experiences that are going through this.
Yeah, and I just want to put a plug in. I think, I've seen on the investor side ways that we can do more. So specifically, we are hooking up, creating collaborative networks to provide mentorship. But I think there is a desire to grow the number of checks that can be offered. I think most people know that funds can only provide a limited amount of checks. Here at the California Healthcare Foundation, we only fund really 4 to 6 early stage companies a year. And so the ability to make broader change requires us to have connective tissue and to talk across each other's organizations about the investments that we wish we could have made, because there are a lot of times that you say no that you wish you could have said yes. So I'm just flagging that. We do have a series of events that are happening around Latino health, frankly, signaling that this is a market to invest in. And the founders that we're bringing, including a couple that are on this call, I see, hello, Sanarai, will be joining us at the upcoming Health Summit here in Vegas, but we're also having another event in Houston, Texas, December 7th and 8th. So be on the lookout. I would say navigate a little more, because there are signals going out into the market about people wanting to help. And sometimes it looks like a convening, and sometimes it looks like an accelerator, but this is part of creating the fabric towards more checks. Padma, I'll start with you. From your perspective, what are some of the founder challenges and opportunities that you would want to provide? I think most of the audience here are digital health or digital tech founders.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one big thing is we sometimes are clouded by this notion that venture capital is the only source of funding. Like, you cannot build a successful business without venture funding. I want to really dispel that myth, because you can have a profitable company that doesn't need to really tap into venture funding. And there's also a lot of different sources of funding. I think founders are slowly becoming more aware of it. And I think this goes back to the knowledge piece that I mentioned earlier. There's grant funding, depending on the sector that you're in, whether it's healthcare, fintech. There's a lot of organizations that are putting out grants. There's also endowments, institutions, family foundations that have recognized, they're aligning with these initiatives that are impacting the Latino community. And I think we have to figure out who those allies are. So I think having just more awareness around that. And then, of course, just putting that knowledge out there, for everyone to learn and understand that there are other sources of funding. And I see my founders asking about that every day. Is VC funding the only way? No, there's a lot of these various routes. And I think how we can just create more knowledge and awareness around that in terms of, like, from a mentorship perspective, and as investors communicate that better, whether it aligns with what's helping us, on our fund side, right? We have to kind of educate those who are coming to us with those questions.
We have a question in the chat. I'm going to jump in from Christopher Zavalos. Outside of funding, can you speak about what a career path in VC looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Christopher. I think this is a question I'm sometimes still answering to today. There's traditional paths to VC where you might go to business school, start as an analyst or an associate, and then, go down that route. I think one of the paths that I'm seeing more and more is starting a company, and whether it's successful or not, as an operator, you just gain so much knowledge from a startup. Successes or failures, you just learn from both experiences. And we're seeing a lot of operators going into investing roles. And quite frankly, I see those operators to be excellent VCs, because you understand the problems of founders and you're more likely to roll up your sleeves and do that. There's also non-traditional routes like Sophia's and mine. I really think finding a mentor is a big thing, but also finding funds that align with focus areas like equity in certain spaces, looking to work with more underrepresented founders. I think those are kind of some of the starting paths to, really thinking about how to break into venture. And there's a lot of great programs. Sophia mentioned Included VC. My former fund had a venture cooperative program to help aspiring VCs learn how to get into that. So there's tons of programs and resources.
And Chris, I would just add on to that. There are scout programs that are out there, particularly for domain experts. I came into the world of VC because I knew a lot about healthcare and the trends associated. But the programs that were created in the market specifically to bring in more diverse founders is how I got in as well. If it's something that you want to do on your own, I highly suggest the platform goingvc.com. It's one of the best curriculums I've seen out there. So there are ways to get yourself a little more educated in the diligence process and kind of the analytic nuts and bolts of what investment is. What was the name again? goingvc.com, Yvonne. Awesome. All right, just moving forward, and I will say for myself also included, but this question's for Sophia as well. You know, I think oftentimes many of us come from these communities. I came from the border of South Texas, and you're lucky enough along the way to find yourself in communities that talk technology and business and things that we were not around as young people. And sometimes I think, how the heck did my six-year-old self get to where I am now? But it also means that you lose some of your understanding of what the communities actually need, particularly because you are not there anymore. And I've thought a lot about what technology can do as a vehicle, as enabling solutions. But at the end of the day, the gift of what we actually have is that we know the community solutions of what our own communities need. And so my question to you is, how have you seen Latinos or technologists build authentically, and how can we promote this, frankly, and value this from an investor perspective? It's something I'm still grappling with.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, your 6-year-old self would be immensely proud of you. I've already told you that. I think about it too, and I'm just like, she would have never thought ever. And similar to you, like, you know, I came from a middle income family at one point, then we became low income, and things were very, very difficult. I had a parent in and out of the hospital who ended up passing away. And I personally actually initially wanted to go into healthcare for that reason, right? To build a haven for diverse communities initially. It ended up not being my specific area. However, at the root of that was community, right? And I think, honestly, some of the most successful companies that I've seen, even from Latinas, have been those who've been able to build such a genuine following, and who have been able to continue to create that tie. I think that it's the companies that lose sight of what their community wants. And I know that from a VC standpoint, we call it like customer discovery, right? Initially, you're doing customer discovery in the beginning when you're building your company. But the issue that a lot of founders face, and what I've seen, especially being on the platform side, is they stop after that like first few months. They're like, oh, like, we're good, we know what to do. Your community is always going to be changing and evolving. And as Vanessa said, sometimes you can't be in direct contact with them every single day. Even me being with, you know, the Muslim community, like I don't see it every single day. However, I kind of keep my ear to the streets, as we call it, to kind of always see, like, meeting up with people and figuring out what are the problems that they're going through. Even just having that open door kind of policy, ensuring that people feel like you're still reachable and that they can still kind of come to you with different problems and ask you questions. But going back to what you said, I've seen incredible founders, like a business called Hija de tu Madre, which is like a consumer brand that has been so successful. I don't even think she ended up getting any VC funding. I think she bootstrapped it, but she's been able to be so successful because she's built this community of Latinas who are just so tied into her vision of wanting to be unapologetically Latina. We see so many hair care companies started by Afro Latinas who, again, have that specific community. And I think we're seeing a lot larger companies take note of that. If we're looking specifically at the Black community, a lot of these larger conglomerates are acquiring these businesses because of the fact that they tailor a niche that they have never been able to get as a large conglomerate. So I would say, don't underestimate the value of community. Now more than ever, especially with Gen Z, people are purchasing with their values at the forefront. They want to feel like they belong to a community. So don't ever discredit that. And remember to really continue to maintain those relationships. And whether you're a founder or somebody who wants to be an investor, relationships are definitely going to be one of the most important things as you move forward.
Yeah, there's some claps for you, and I'll just clap out loud. 100% agree. This is a lot of what we're talking about in healthcare investments as well. So, just to shout out a couple companies that I love, including Sanadai, who's on this call, focusing on what our community actually needs in the engagement, which for them, they're able to get Spanish speakers to engage in mental health services on average 3 times per visit. Nobody in the medical community can do that. On average, mental health visitation to a counselor is only 1 time. So the ability to show me from a metrics perspective that your consumer engagement beats market, beats what would otherwise have been real in the healthcare consumption community, to me is a signal that you have a better consumer engagement practice. To me, this is a sign of authenticity. It's that you're meeting a need faster, better, smarter. And I would urge everyone in their pitch decks to go back and review, am I saying that? Am I doing that? And to Sophia's point, am I doing that over time? So question for Padma. What are some of the things that you wish you could change if you had a magic wand for the way founders enter the investment community?
Yeah. So, wow, if I had an hour for that answer,
You got 2 minutes.
I think the big thing is really reducing that barrier to entry. I think traditionally it's just been, kind of certain groups have had access into the VC and startup world. And I think we're starting to see that change, but there just needs to be much more change happening and much more incrementally. And I think one of the things I think is really how that can even happen is investors also have to kind of put their money where their mouth is. I think we talk a lot about mentorship. We have an open office hour. We have this ability for you to join a free, a coaching group on this. I think it's really comes down to put the checks down, for these founders. It's the money that can really kind of help them accelerate their business. And I find it ironic, in the world of venture capital, venture is all about risk, but so few people, even with all the gunpowder, they're willing to take that risk. And so I think investors need to stand up. I think LPs need to make that change as well, that they're only going to look at funds that are actually investing in companies that are delivering impact to these communities. And then, of course, who are these stakeholders beyond that? Like, let's all be allies. Let's all pledge to actually doing this, have a manifesto in your thesis that is actually committed to investing in change and driving change.
Yeah, so much of what you said resonates. I want to make sure everybody understands that, the venture capital is truly representing other people's money unless they're a family office or an angel investor. And so when you have large funds making those risks, they are beholden to the reason their capital allocators gave them funding. There's actually a bill in California, just flagging anybody who's into policy, that would require that more of the capital allocators give money to diverse fund managers. For instance, CalPERS here in California currently only gives 8% of its fund major endowment public money towards diverse fund managers. So as we think about how to generate opportunities for our Latino tech community, please keep in mind that there are 2 levels above the investors themselves where there has to be change. So with that said, Sophia, what are some of your magic wands that you wish were different, or what are some words of wisdom that you would like to provide in closing?
Oh my goodness. I think being a founder is a really difficult process, right? And I think as a fellow founder, and again, I'm a founder of a nonprofit, it's very different. I completely understand that. But I also see firsthand, especially, with the founders I still am in contact with and still help support, just how difficult this process really can be. I would just remind each of you that there is value in what you're doing. And sometimes people won't see it now. And even with all the, statistics that Vanessa shared today with how Latinos are growing so significantly, and yet we're still underfunded, I want you to use that as motivation. And I'll share this little tidbit. I remember when I was starting this organization, people thought this isn't necessary. This isn't like a need. And I remember doing my own research, doing my surveys, doing my, interviews with women who were like, no, we need this. And now fast forward 5-6 years, and now people are like, she's an industry expert when it comes to Muslim consumerism, and she understands, how Muslim consumers are thinking and where they're trying to invest. And I actually connected with an investor the other day who was like, yeah, Muslims are one of the largest consumers in the UK now, and we're trying to shift our, perspective there. So 5 years ago, people thought I was crazy. 5 years later, I'm an expert. Remember that in those moments. You know what I mean? Remember that in those moments. Remember your why. Why are you doing this? Why is it needed? And surround yourself. Find that group of people who supports you. Find that group of people that you can share this journey with, who motivate you. And last but not least, please take care of yourselves. I know this isn't something we talk about too much, but self-care as a founder is essential. You got to maintain yourself and keep yourself, in the right mindset, and take care of your health. Sometimes even as these healthcare founders are building companies, I'm like, can you please take a page out of your own book and take care of yourself as well? So I would just say, again, we're here for you. If there's anything we can do to support you, add us on LinkedIn. And I look forward to seeing you all being just so successful.
Yeah, echoing that, please feel free to add us on LinkedIn, and we're happy to help you connect to the resources. Thank you so much. We're about to head over to the stage area where we are all going to hear the closing and the fireside chat. Thank you.